I've stayed at this particular company because I genuinely love the people, and I've been very grateful for the opportunities I've been able to take advantage of. That said, I think I've been successful in some of this because I started when the company was so small. I understood so much more to the left and right of me than I think a lot of CMOs necessarily have the opportunity or bandwidth to do or learn.
The tenure of a CMO at any one company can be short-lived. So what does it take to stay in the seat for over a decade? Today's guest tells us because she has that experience. Welcome to Marketing Trends. I'm your host, Jeremy Bergeron. We're pleased to welcome to the show Susan Vitale, the Chief Marketing Officer for the cloud-based talent acquisition company iCIMS. Susan joined the company as a marketing coordinator 17 years ago and climbed the ranks all the way to Chief Marketing Officer, where she now oversees global marketing efforts at scale. Tune in to hear all about Susan's unique marketing journey and even get some advice on how to overcome doubt when you're stepping into large roles. And before we get into the podcast, I want to give a special thanks to Salesforce, our partners. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing. Now let's get into it. I'm just stoked to have you, Susan. Let's start at the tippity top for our audience, and just in terms of kind of I know your start was marketing in school, right? That was the beginning for you, was marketing in college, or did it go back even earlier with mom and sister?
I guess technically it went back earlier.
Okay.
My mom's an entrepreneur, as you know, and so early on, and she started the business, on her own. It was literally out of our dining room, which worked well because she couldn't cook, and so we never sat at the dining room anyway. But she literally built this business out of our home. It was all females who worked there. They would literally all come in and work. And so some of that marketing career came early because we were in charge of the collateral. We worked her trade show booths and things like that. We answered the phones. And my mom's background prior to that had been in graphic design. So have always had some of this marketing surrounding my life. But yeah, more formally, I'd say not in my home, would be in college, and then jumped right into marketing career directly out of school.
I heard on a previous interview, you talked about you having to really sell, was it the dean on marketing? Like they were kind of dissuading you from pursuing marketing as studying marketing, and you had to really kind of plant a stake in the ground there and really sell someone in, I think it was at the dean at the college you were at or something. What's the story there?
That's right. And I don't know of anyone who's ever had to do that before or since. It's so funny because when I was really young, I remember being asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, a CEO and an author. And, in a lot of ways, that's kind of what a CMO does. They help grow these businesses. They're chief storytellers, and so it was this really interesting mix. When I started at college at Lehigh University in PA, I actually had started my major in business management. And about halfway through my tenure there, they decided essentially to do away with that major. And I essentially said, people aren't really hiring managers straight out of school. And so this is our reasoning. Fair enough. And so I had to pick something else. And I thought marketing made a lot of sense. And I think the dean felt that a lot of students wanted to pursue marketing because they thought it was easy or just prettying things up or something like that. And I never saw marketing as that. And so I kind of had to pitch and said, marketing is fundamental to growing a business. If you can't get that right, how does any business succeed? And kind of going back to wanting to be a CEO, that was fundamental to me, of just the heart and spirit of how you grow a business. And so I guess my persuasive skills worked, and I was able to major in marketing, and I minored in PR and comms, which is very much what I do today.
What was this opportunity at iCIMS in the early days? Was this just you were scouring for opportunity? Let's start at the beginning there, because you've been there a minute. And yeah, what was the early days of that?
Yeah, I've been here since 2005. I'm approaching my 17-year anniversary.
Wow.
And at the time, I was actually approached by our then head of marketing and sales. He saw my resume on a college job board that doesn't even exist anymore, which makes me feel sad about myself. But he found my resume, he called me, and I really just took the interview as practice. I expected I would go into New York City, I would go into publishing or something. I didn't even know what HR technology was. We were a really small company. We were a couple dozen employees, about 1.5 in marketing. And I was just so fortunate. I really clicked with my then boss, our CEO, who was also the founder of the company, and others. And I was really blessed because I was able to gain a lot of trust early on. I was given a lot of autonomy, really for no reason. I mean, I had no real experience to draw upon, but I felt true ownership in what I was doing, and that was super important to me. And I was clear about that in the interview, maybe more than your average college senior would be. Like, here's what I need. So that's what brought me here. But I've been here now almost half my life, which is the longest relationship I've ever had. And, I constantly say that the people and the opportunity have kept me here. I've just been really, really fortunate about the opportunities I've been given or I've earned, stepping into management, director roles, CMO. Really lucky about that.
That's amazing. I mean, I want to spend a little time here, and I think thinking about, how do we look at this, this great career over, you said almost 17 years in kind of stages. It's like, okay, the first was the beginning where you came in as this kind of new marketing contributor. What are some of the things that they threw on your plate? What are some of the things you got exposed to early on? And then did you also feel like marketing leadership was something you wanted quick, or was that coming later on in the marketing journey?
Especially in a small company, we were, again, just a couple dozen employees. Everybody's already doing everything. And that was great for me. I was qualifying leads. I was writing case studies. I was writing press releases. I was responding to RFPs, which was probably the best learning experience I got, because I would literally go into our software to figure out how it worked to respond to the RFP. I literally shared walls with our sales team. And so I got to eavesdrop on all of these conversations, listen to them doing demos, and it made such a massive difference for me. And in fact, some of those early things were hard for me to let go of as we got bigger and as we hired other people to do it. Like, I loved doing the case studies. I loved talking to the customers. I didn't want to let that go. But at some point you tap out, and you obviously need to let go in order to move up and move on. So I was exposed to a lot very early on that I felt really lucky about. Our then director of marketing and sales ultimately moved into just a sales leadership role. It was too much for him to take on both. And so I was able to move up within the organization. And I was terrified. I didn't think I could do it. I didn't want to break what he had built. We were seen as this really well-performing team, really strong machine. And frankly, I had no experience. And at the time, it's not like we had these really strong training programs on how to be an incredible manager and all the things that we offer now at iCIMS, now that we're closer to 1,300 people, 1,400 people around the world. So it was a lot of blind faith, and I'm very appreciative for it. And I've been surrounded by very, very, very good people who, frankly, just impress me every day. And I'm fortunate that I get to be their spokesperson.
Wow. You talk about imposter syndrome too, and how important that is for women in business and humans in business in general. It sounds like that might have been a moment where you really stepped into something and overcame it. And I'm just curious about, kind of the story there for you in pursuing that, stepping into something that had great responsibility and support, but also like a new world you had to push through. A lot of people wouldn't even go there, or they might go there and then back out. Why did you continue on?
It's funny because we started this conversation talking about my mom, single mom of twin girls, started this company that we referenced earlier with zero experience. And so I remember explicitly the conversation I had with her at dinner after I was told I was getting this promotion. And I said, like, oh God, I don't want to break anything. I don't know about this. And I really distinctly remember my mom saying, the board, the executive team, et cetera, would not give you this opportunity if they didn't think you can do it, A. And B, the job is not for you to just continue what's been built. It's to create the next best journey for this whole group, for this team, for the business. It's not just keeping the lights on. And so that really, really clearly resonated with me and has been really in the back of my head ever since. She and our founder have also had really similar words of wisdom in terms of hiring people that are better than you in their explicit disciplines to help you rise up, give you lift, et cetera. And that's been really important for me. I've just been really grateful that I've been able to convince so many smart, talented people to come along and hopefully have some fun along the way. They've made all the difference. And I'm really grateful for that.
How has the company iCIMS evolved while you've been there, right? And then how have you changed as well along this journey?
Oh, in so many ways. It's funny, we were talking a little while ago how you mentioned it's pretty unusual for CMOs, executives in particular, but CMOs certainly, to have such long tenure at a company and in tech for sure. And I think that's definitely true in marketing. I tend to see a lot of CMOs come in, maybe they do a brand campaign, get the company from this stage to maybe this stage plus one, and then they jump out and they don't necessarily roll around in it for too long or live in it. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a passing of judgment. It's just common. I've had the ability and the interest to really be with the company through all these different phases of growth when we were about $1 million in ARR to now approaching more like 350 million ARR. And that's been, obviously very different each stage, different degrees of challenge with each of those, different degrees of scrutiny, of spotlight, going from founder-led to accepting growth equity with Susquehanna Growth to Vista. Recently, we announced a new relationship with PA Associates. Each has been very, very different. And I think it's very common for executives to come in and say, I'm really good at the 5 to 15 million or the 25 to 50 million stage. And, maybe they hate the larger scale or vice versa. The metrics we look at today weren't even a figment of our imagination 15 years, like we didn't know. And so I've been really proud of myself for being able to step into those new challenges and expectations and degrees of scale and learn something new and not just keep up, but help lead us through those different phases of growth and challenge along the way. Certainly a lot more disciplined, a lot more analytical, and just thinking about things of how do we think bigger about this so that we don't get too much into that thinking small mentality, but never losing that scrap that I think sometimes at bigger companies, you don't see enough of the roll up the sleeves. How do we just get it done and embrace the grit?
What would you say you've really, if you could whittle it down to one or two, skills you've cultivated over the, decade plus that you've been in marketing and marketing leadership there? Like, what are these things what are these kind of, what's table stakes for you to, as a CMO, entrench yourself in an organization where you're clearly not going anywhere. You've already passed, the vast majority of CMOs that just don't last anywhere near that. What are some of the things you think you've been able to do to go from this founder-led company, like you said, taking outside capital, having some new leadership and another new CEO in Steve? What would you say if you could whittle it down to one or two things of like these two things have kept me in the game and will keep me in the game as a CMO for as long as I choose?
Well, I stayed at this particular company because I genuinely love the people and I've been very grateful for the opportunities I've been able to take advantage of where I've been granted. That said, I think I've been successful in some of this because I started when the company was so small. I understood so much more to the left and right of me than I think a lot of CMOs necessarily have the opportunity or bandwidth to do or learn. Like, I love our product. I got really deep in the product really early on where I was doing demos. I was very involved in our partner ecosystem and our product strategy, et cetera. And that was important. I got a lot of time with our customers to really hear from them what's going on. A lot of time with industry analysts to really see what was happening in the industry and not get too myopic or inward focused about that. The other piece is because I understood the left and right of anything from the customer experience to the product, is that I really understand our waterfall. And I think a lot of times we see marketers who tend to over-index in one area or the other. Again, not a judgment. It's where they're passionate about and what the business might need at any given time. But unfortunately, I think a lot are not as interested in or jump into the tide of revenue. Just like, how do you understand the bottoms up and what role marketing plays in that? That's been very important for me.
I think about just strategic planning and how you have to align with a new leader or new stakeholders that come in. And again, it's like you have to fit in. You said waterfall. It's like you have to be able to, reach across the aisle and start to align your goals with other stakeholders in the business and continue moving forward. What's that like, kind of, again, not working with the same people over and over again, but having to kind of fit into new perspectives? I mean, you've got, Steve Lucas, current CEO there, who Adobe acquired Marketo. He was the CEO there on the board of Drift, a marketing kind of leader of himself, and then you now, of course, supporting and protecting him, and vice versa. Again, how do you align with folks of this caliber at different phases?
Yeah, I think I've been very fortunate in that all of these different leaders I've worked alongside or worked for have taught me something about myself or that will help my career in some way, shape, or form probably at the stage I needed it in life. Steve, as you mentioned, he's a marketer. I mean, he comes from Marketo. He did marketing at Microsoft, and has led a lot of go-to-market related and product related functions and departments, et cetera, at Salesforce and SAP. So and he loves technology, but he loves marketing. And so 99% of the time, you're like, thank goodness he gets it. He wants to invest in this. He believes in it. 1% of the time, you're like, Steve, this can't just be about marketing. Like we gotta make good on this and blah, blah, blah. And all of that is in jest, and it's a really good dynamic. Steve has absolutely enabled me to think bigger about marketing, what we do, massive scale in terms of making bold statements, pulling off these really big events that are really important for our brand. Soon after he joined, which was March of 2020, so wild time to join any company.
Perfect time to join.
Especially a company that's all about hiring technology.
Yeah, you're right.
It took us all like a year to hang out in person, so it was just an incredible time. But in going through that, Steve was really good about just having the finger on the pulse of what's happening around us and how do we connect what we do to what's happening today versus tomorrow versus a week from now. That was incredible. We also went through a rebrand just a few weeks after Steve joined. We kicked off that process, and we decided to launch our first ever global user conference about 6 months after he joined. We pulled that off. So a couple of massive marketing moves within 9 months or so after Steve joined, and he helped us see that we could do a lot more than we thought we could in a fraction of the time.
Wow. And
he's really proud of what we were able to pull off.
Was that your first rebrand at iCIMS in the time you'd been there, or are there others?
We had gone through some reskins and things like that before,
okay.
But this was a bit different. And I think what we often see in rebrands is maybe more of just the look and feel, and obviously web properties and things like that. But we also really re-architected how we were positioning our product set through a number of acquisitions as well as organic development of the product. We wanted to really reconcile that, make it easier to understand. And so obviously there's quite a lot that goes into that winds up manifesting on a website or a marketecture, but there's 9,000 hours of work and debate and fun conversations that go along with that too. And so that was a very important element to what we were doing.
When did international marketing become a thing at your time there? Was it early days already going global, or talk about the international marketing efforts there?
We had some starts and stops early on. A couple of years into my tenure there, we went much bigger the last couple of years, and then doubled down in just the last couple of years in particular through some acquisitions. So during the pandemic, we acquired this incredible Dublin-based company that has built this awesome AI engine. Then not too long after that, acquired a company called Easy Recruit based in France, but with a pretty broad footprint, particularly in Southern Europe. And then just about 2 months ago, we acquired a company in Scotland called Candidate ID, which is so cool because it's literally a marketing automation platform built for recruiting. So a lot of what we do at iCIMS, and I should have been more clear, is we're the Talent Cloud company. So we have this HR technology platform that enables companies all over the world to attract, engage, hire, and advance amazing talent that builds their diverse winning workforces. And we support about 40% of the Fortune 100, about 4,000 customers around the world. And collectively, those employers employ about 34 million people, world's leading brands. And so the really interesting thing that we've seen is that what organizations do in B2B or B2C marketing is super applicable to what we do in recruiting and retaining talent. So in particular, this marketing automation acquisition was so cool because we live it, right? So like the marketing department was super pumped. And a lot of the things that we've been doing, CRM, et cetera, is just for talent acquisition and talent management. But obviously, we really understand how it works in the world of B2B.
For some of these acquisitions, are you getting pulled into these to evaluate them kind of prior to acquisition? And what are some of the things that you're looking for, if so, kind of making this, hey, this is a good bet for us versus maybe it's not, as a marketing leader?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really good part of the job. You learn a lot and get to see a lot. And so for me, obviously, the product market fit is really important. Understanding how the product could apply to our existing customer base is important. So we tend to see a lot of success with cross-selling those tuck-ins to our existing base. So we essentially overlay it on the base to say, what do we think we can do here? Obviously, it's important for us to understand what it does from a brand perspective. Does it pull us forward or pull us back? And what's the overall sentiment out there on the brand? And probably most importantly, beyond obviously the financials, et cetera, making sure these are healthy businesses, we take a look at the people and just say, are these going to be cultural adds for us? Do we feel like we're all going to like working with each other and learn from each other, et cetera? That is super important.
So the buyer is kind of like chief people officer in the Fortune 100. Is that kind of, is it a level lower than them? Like, who are the customers of iCIMS?
Yeah, as with almost all enterprise technology, there's often a committee, but the CHRO is certainly super important for us and is typically highly involved here. Depending on the individual products within the Talent Cloud, we might see the VP of Talent Acquisition obviously is highly interested and really important for us. And then as we've expanded into this area of internal mobility, saying it's not just about hiring people, it's what happens after. How do you get them from marketing coordinator to CMO? We've built out this really interesting set of capabilities that we call the Opportunity Marketplace to help companies tap into their existing employees and advance their careers. And so sometimes now we're seeing more on the talent management side, HR BPs. And then interestingly enough, we spend a lot of time talking with recruitment marketing and employment branding leaders and departments. That's an evolving space. It's a super interesting and fun one for me to look at because there are people out there, departments out there that are responsible for marketing a company and building a brand for the company. And that doesn't always live within the marketing department. It's now more than ever in talent.
In terms of just kind of experimenting with anything, I mean, do you have budget set aside for things, AI and other kind of things that are more trendy, or do you kind of stick to what you're knowing and your growth plan?
Yeah, I think we always have to remind people that it's important for marketing to test more than almost any other group out there. And that if we don't see the returns, that's still a successful test. That means we learned something and we won't keep putting money there. I always laugh because I've had so many conversations with people when they say, what do you do with a channel that isn't performing? Like, what do you think? Like, we stopped putting money in. We double down. So yeah, it's super important to test. And I think for us to try new things, and it could be within a channel we already know, right? Or it could be a new virtual event, or it could be new things with ABM or new technologies. But even beyond just the results of them, I think it's really empowering for our team members to lead those tests. They have that sense of ownership that was super important for me, even at 22 when I joined the company. It's just as important to our team members now, whether they're 22 or 102, that they feel like they got to come up with some cool idea, run it, and learn something from it. So that's super important for us.
So just in terms of ABM approach there, I mean, what's your perspective on ABM? What are you seeing work really well for ABM for you? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
We've had a long journey with ABM. I feel like we actually started very early, and my hat is off to our VP of Marketing Operations, who led demand gen for us prior to stepping into that role, because she was really bleeding edge with a lot of what we wanted to do with ABM and had to sell some of us internally on it. Because it's a big investment, as you know. It's in some respects, I think it gets overhyped because of some of the labeling for it, et cetera. But at its heart, yeah, absolutely, companies should be doing this as long as they know who they should be going after. I don't think there's enough attention spent on really ensuring you're going after the right target accounts before you run into execution mode. And I don't think there's enough attention spent across the business that for why we were calling this account-based revenue, because otherwise people just see it as some marketing thing. But that tight alignment, not even just with sales, but the executive teams, et cetera, is really important. But we've had a lot of success here. I think an important thing for us was to ensure that this wasn't just seen as a demand gen program, but it extends to bespoke digital experiences, content that speaks to these folks, how our SDRs are aligned, what our events team is doing to ensure that we're really looking after these accounts in a different way. And then obviously on the customer side, that there are ABM approaches we should be taking to existing customers, and it's not just about net new logos. So it's been fun. I think we've actually started getting into a really good rhythm, particularly this year. We have some amazing team members leading the charge, and that makes all the difference. And I think it needs time and consistency. there's a lot people throw at ABM, and if they don't see it work within a month, we're like, all right, never mind. And I've certainly had to be talked off of ledges for some of this, saying like, we're spending an awful lot on this. Show me some of the early results. It doesn't have to be close won revenue just yet, but I need to feel good about these leading indicators, and it does take patience.
Yeah, it's there's something that we talk about a lot internally, and then sometimes it'll come up on the show, and this better than me, and just in terms of this, these B2B buyers are fragmented, and like you said, they often make decisions in like groups of people, and they're often doing a ton of research before they ever even talk to you, and getting to them at the right time with the right message. And it's such an interesting world to be in, and I'm always curious about folks' approaches there. In terms of just what you're excited about moving forward on, I mean, again, you've seen a lot, done a lot of things. Like, what are you most pumped about at iCIMS, looking into the next 3 to 5 years, and a really interesting industry that seems to be moving and evolving in really interesting ways with new segments popping up and things like that. But what are you just stoked on?
I'm in this unique seat, right? Because I get to see what B2B marketing and just marketing in general, what's happening there. And because so much of it ties to what we do in the industry of HR tech and talent acquisition in particular, I feel like I can see around the curve for some of this and start bringing it to reality with some lessons learned, because we've been burned in some cases. We've seen wild success in others. So that's really cool for me. And it's cool to lead this department for them to get excited about that too. They can speak more passionately about these products that we offer, et cetera, because they really understand them and they understand the benefit. But our team, it's about how are we driving revenue more effectively and more efficiently every day, how we're differentiating our message in a really crowded space, how we're building this community of evangelists and supporters, customers, analysts, the media, and so on. Probably most importantly, how we continue to develop and build this world-class team that feels valued, that feels challenged, they feel fulfilled, and they feel supported in what they do here. That's really important for me, obviously, having been here a long time. That really, really matters to me.
I love it. Susan, thank you. This has been an exceptional conversation. Let's get into the lightning round. Are you ready for some fun questions?
Oh, I sure hope so. I hope I do okay here.
You will do just fine. I will say this is lightning round, so try to answer like from the heart, quick. And before we get into it, I have to give a special nod to our sponsor, Salesforce. Marketing Trends Podcast is brought to the world by Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. Learn more at salesforce.com/marketing. We have Susan Vitale, CMO at iCIMS, in the virtual house. First question, Susan, outside of work topics, what is a topic that you really care about and want to share with other people?
Women in the workforce and women in leadership.
Love it. Great. What's the last time you tried something new?
I have a 3.5-year-old, so I feel like every day I am trying something new.
I hear you, and that is the best answer ever. What's a life lesson you learned the hard way?
It's not about being right. It's about getting it right.
Love that one. What's an activity that makes you lose track of time?
Reading.
Follow up to that. If you could choose one book as a mandatory read for all high school students, which book would you choose?
Freakonomics was an incredible book, and I think would be awesome for high schoolers to learn because they start seeing boring topics in a cool way, and it would force them to just think about things differently in life.
Okay, would you rather lose all of your old memories or never be able to make new ones?
I guess never be able to make new ones. I have too many precious ones with a 3.5-year-old daughter, the light of my life. If I lost those, I would be forever heartbroken.
What are you betting on for the future? It could be personal or professional. Like, what are you betting on for the future?
More balance. A company's balance of growth and profitability, and less grow at all costs, looking at employees in a more balanced way as full human beings, prioritizing, flexibility and mental health, more purpose, and gosh, I hope it also means more of everyone doing the right thing.
Okay, let's say you get a phone call from Steve tomorrow and he says, Susan, do you want the good news or the bad news? You say bad news. He says, the whole marketing team's gone. It's just you and me. I need your help. You got to hire the first marketing person tomorrow. That's the good news. Who's the first role you hire and why?
It depends on the goals of the business, but probably the smartest hire would be a utility player or generalist who's just really hungry, really wants to learn.
Okay, I love that. What do you make of kind of these growing brands like Wendy's and Chipotle and others that are kind of exploring the potential of virtual worlds? What do you make of this?
Fun to watch. I'm happy to let others be the guinea pigs and, um, and be interested to see what happens.
Okay. What is something that impresses you?
Those in customer service, they are so incredibly patient. I'd love to have a dose of that.
That's great. What's your favorite app on your phone?
Probably my photos or Slate. I'm on Slate every
Slate.
day.
Okay. Okay. What is a skill that you believe everyone should have?
Listening.
That is my all-time favorite answer for the record, Susan. If you could effortlessly pick up a new skill in an instant, what would it be?
Anything sporty. I'm like the least athletic person in the world. Or maybe like speaking other languages. That would probably get me farther in life.
Okay. And then what is one thing you would like to do this year that you've never done before?
Meet some of my global colleagues in real life. We have these incredible people in Italy and Spain and France and Ireland and Scotland that I haven't met and seen how tall they are. And I'd like to do that.
Sounds like some international travel is in your cards for the future, Susan.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here. This was an incredible conversation. Best of luck to you, the iCIMS squad. Congrats on your career. I know this is definitely nowhere near the end. And congrats on the new young one at home. And well, newish, three still in the new range. So lots of love and thanks for being here, Susan. Hey everyone, thanks for watching. Please subscribe to this channel for more great marketing interviews with today's top industry leaders. And thank you to our partners at Salesforce. Salesforce brings marketing and engagement together. Head over to salesforce.com/marketing.